Alright guys, so I've got a pretty unpopular opinion which I am going to share with all of you, and it's almost Saul Alinsky-esque, but it's my belief that you should always use self-checkout machines, and you should always treat yourself to a few extra free items. So I'm going to walk through that in response to a meme that's been going around, the never self-checkout meme next here on Jinkajabo. So briefly, the picture, or the meme, is a picture of a woman standing at one of those self-checkout aisles, and it says, "Never self-checkout. It's not convenient for me to help corporations fire workers so they can raise their profits. I stand in line, and when the lines back up, the store calls more cashiers to the front. If we keep doing it, they'll never need to hire more people. Never self-checkout." And that's a pretty good idea. I guess you can just stand in line and wait for it to go. But if you have the option of using the self-checkout, well, why not take them up on that? It kind of reminds me, this is a different situation, but I forget where I was. I was in China or Japan or somewhere, but it had been a long flight, and I wanted just to get through the X-ray scanning quickly, and so I asked for someone just to feel me up, the Homeland Security or TSA or whoever it was. Maybe it must have been in America or somewhere. Maybe it was a flight from China or something. But anyway, to skip a line, there's nothing wrong with doing that. And these free checkout thing, or these self-checkout things, I call it a free checkout thing, because I've experienced these before, and it's interesting that this thing is making the rounds. I've never seen these anywhere apart from the United States to begin with. I think it would look kind of out of place elsewhere. And certainly as a expatriate, it would be much more confusing, even if they arrayed it in English. But I have seen these back home across the Midwest in Virginia. And I'll confess, every time I go through and I see one, I go for it, and I do the absolute worst job that I can. I scan the bananas wrong. If it asks me, it's always, a lot of these things are like honor system things. Like, okay, how many donuts are in your bag? Rather than scanning the individual donuts of the bag or anything. And I just think, well, okay, there's 6 here. That's maybe two that I'm willing to pay for, and the rest go right in the bag. Because the fact is, you're the ones who are making me do the employee's work. So help yourself to a few free items, and that's what I call my self-checkout fee. The employee that brings you up incorrectly, misses a food item, or counts something wrong, or puts something in the bag that wasn't paid for, as long as it's something small, and as long as it's something that's just the process of the mistakes that people make, it's not something that that an employee would get a felony for, which is what someone was trying to tell me. That, if you steal something, and no matter what, you'll get a felony for taking things. It's still theft. Well, no, it's the employee that brings up the food items wrong. They get fired if they get caught, assuming they get caught. I imagine that on any given day around the world, there's a lot of money just lost just in people counting food items wrong. Or it works the other way, too. I've certainly had the experience, and I'm sure others have, where you've left something behind, maybe just an item or two, or something that you thought you had put in your bag or thought you had brought with you, but you had left it at the store. And so you either run back or get it, or you realize that it's too small to worry about. But, if they don't want me taking free things, then they can hire more security, or they can have the cashier, which is, not to sound like a complete Luddite, but if you have these self-checkout machines, that's sort of like saying that the cashier has no value. And so I'd say the cashier does have a value that can't be replaced by a machine, or at least it can't be replaced by a machine yet, in that the cashier is the one responsible for properly measuring and counting the items that you are purchasing. And so since I am not being paid as the cashier to do that, I take it upon myself to do the poorest job that I can, to always round down, and to make sure that any given time that I use a self-checkout line, I held myself to just, and I'm not talking about big electronic items or things like that. I'm talking about just $1 or $2, like an extra cinnamon roll or a few extra bananas or something. That's what I'm talking about. And that's cost that I'm sure the people behind the machines are aware of. I'm sure that whoever set this up understands that, well, we will save money by not having employees, and having things on the trust system, we can assume that there will be a few mistakes or a few nefarious jokers like yours truly here who will go through and take a few things. But in general, people are very willing just to blindly follow the rules. And that's what kind of makes this a Saul Alinsky-esque position that I've had. And an unpopular position. I've been attacked by people on the left and on the right for these comments. But the fact is, I see it not as stealing because, I am being asked for a service. I am being asked to provide a service of properly counting and measuring my items. And it's not something that I am being paid for. And so, lex talionis, I have to work out the balance in my head. Because whoever is at the top has already well worked out that balance. So, we need to look at the moral question. Yeah, of course, stealing is wrong. I agree, stealing is wrong. And my time is valuable. Stealing my time is valuable. Stealing from me as a customer, stealing from the employee as someone who would be counted on to measure the items correctly and help me bag them. It's stealing their job. It's stealing their livelihood. And until they make a machine, I guess the situation where I would be in the wrong here is if they made something where you could just push your cart into onto a conveyor belt or something, and it all counts it all automatically and then charges you without you having to individually count and measure and wrap each thing. Then I could see that as, well, of course, I wouldn't be able to take a few extra things, and it's become fully automated. But we're not to that point yet. And our technology has yet to catch up with this. And so enticing people to get ahead in line by telling them they can scan their own items really is kind of a shitty thing to do. And so that's why that's why I always take a couple extra items when I go through self-checkout lines. And I'm not afraid to do it. And if I get caught, anyone out there who ever sees me walk away with a couple bananas, I measured it wrong, or I wasn't quite sure how to use the machine, or the machine made an error. And if we all did that, then we wouldn't have these silly machines. And so you need to back up your beliefs. You need to be willing to say that sometimes following the rules just isn't morality. Sometimes it's better just to do things on the sly like that. To take the Saul Alinsky approach, which even as a committed conservative now, I still see some value in that because it gets things done. And that's how we will change the shopping experience, and that's how we will preserve the cashier, because I think cashiers are very valuable in that they are the ones who, like masters of Tetris, they are the ones who stack and sort items and figure out how much everything is worth, and they memorize all these codes and everything. And that's worth paying for, and that's worth having in any establishment with checkout lines. Anyway, next time you find a self-checkout line, help yourself to a couple things and tell them that Chinkajabo sent you. Thank you, as always, for listening to my show, and may your path in life be free.